Hello, it's Rhea. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, I hope you are enjoying yourself. So today, as you can probably guess by the title, I'll be finally getting to the first page of my sketchbook. Now, in January, I did a sketchbook tour for my recently completed sketchbook, and at the end of it, I featured a sneak peek of this current one that I've fully moved on to. And I've actually been sketching in this one for a while, but it was more of an off and on kind of thing until recently because I've fully moved on to this one now. And I have a habit of working in multiple sketchbooks at once, but I thought it'd be good to get back to like honing down on one at a time, so. And I believe I got this sketchbook back in 2021 whenever I visited New York and I went to the Met, which is a pretty popular art museum there, and that's where I got this from as like a souvenir. Also, when I travel, I like to pick up a sketchbook from wherever I went to. And I believe this is, even though it is from the Met, it's also like in collaboration with Fabriano, I believe, which is also like a sketchbook or journal making company. And yeah, I'm excited to continue working in this full force now. Earlier you might have seen a little like scribble of a drawing, and that was the thumbnail for this first page because I wanted to get a general idea of what to do. And initially, I wasn't sure, and I was thinking about this for quite some time, but I decided that I wanted to go about a museum theme since I got this from a museum, and I also, I feel like themes really help create a sense of direction on where to go in case I'm feeling lost and don't really know like what I want to go with. I also feel like a theme can help serve as a point of continuity where it's like, say whenever I get to the final page, I have something that I can refer back to if I'd like to continue that, which I feel like I most likely would. It kind of like really creates the whole sketchbook experience. So running with a museum theme, I decided that it would be kind of interesting to have like a view of a character from behind while they are looking at an art piece, which I always find an interesting composition, and it's one that I'm used to because whenever I went to the Met and the MoMA, I would often take pictures of art pieces while other people were facing them. And I don't know if that's weird. I'm not meaning it in like an odd, creepy way, like, I wasn't trying to be weird. It's more of just like the interest in humanity and how we all interact with art. But of course, another reason is just because people were in my way. Like, I'd go to take a picture of an art piece and they're like walking and I'm like, oh, okay, well. But yeah, it's a fun time regardless. As for who I am drawing, because I'm sure you might be curious, I am drawing my OC Zure, who I love. She's someone who's generally pretty smart and well put together. Like, she's a fashion designer, she likes reading, playing piano, so like, kind of like the image of like your typically cool scholarly friend that probably doesn't see how awesome they are because they're so focused on like, what to improve next or just working on things. But yeah, she's really precious, and I don't know why I feel like I just always picture her in like these royal type atmospheres or like, royalty, ornateness, Baroque energy. Like, yeah, just something profound. And this time I'm actually painting, which is kind of interesting because I haven't really done it in a while, or at least I haven't like shown videos of me painting, let alone in a sketchbook in a while. And I mostly did that because I wanted to avoid any bleed on the next page, because I would hate to like have this really nice beautiful page and then on the next page it's like I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but I've been kind of thinking about that more lately, how it's like in the past I've definitely still drawn on pages anyways despite there being a bleed through, and I still do it now, but sometimes I kind of like the clean look of not having to worry about that bleed on the next page. I mean, I guess it just depends on how intense it is, right? But with alcohol markers, which as y'all know I've been using them more lately, or just it's kind of my go-to regardless, I don't want it to always end up bleeding so strong, which I know there's different like methods you can use here and there, but sometimes it's nice to just have medias that I can use that don't really have that issue, and watercolor is one of them sometimes. In fact, I believe it normally doesn't bleed. The only issue is the page buckles, which as you can see it definitely does, because I just load it down. Like, I don't know what I just kind of, yeah, went all in with the water. I'm still trying to like test out how the sketchbook works with water or watercolor, but for the most part it seems like it can take it fine. It's just not like super heavy. So it was kind of funny to see like the footage back whenever I first started on this, and I just immediately go in completely drenching the page in like water because I'm trying to create like the wash type effect, and slowly add the pigment on there for like a gradient look. But it's like I think I should have been more reserved, because so far whenever I've been using watercolor in this sketchbook, it's been more of like more controlled, more in the sense that like it's going to dry quicker. And I feel like starting any sketchbook, if you plan to use multiple mediums, it's good to swatch test and test how the mediums take the water and stuff like that, or whatever pigment or medium you're using, just to make sure before you like fully jump into like a piece like this. Since I knew for the most part it'd be fine, I was kind of like, well, you know, we'll just see how far I can push it, and I was certainly pushing it. But it seems like it held up okay, and I feel like that's kind of what I wanted, because yeah, with alcohol markers you can layer it the same with watercolors. Like, basically if I layer it with watercolors, it's not going to be as detrimental on the other side of the page as it would be if I used alcohol markers, for sure, because once you start layering with alcohol markers, it's a done deal. I think I even do like a little nervous peek on the other side once when I feel like I'm like laying down a good amount of colors, because I'm like, oh, is this okay? And yeah, it was perfectly fine. It's the same thing with inks too. I was pretty amazed at that. And speaking of, so about the supplies, I predominantly use watercolor whenever I'm creating this spread, and I switch between like several different brushes. I thought like I don't really want to get into each little detail about the supplies this time around, because I use so many different things, and not everything that I use I feel like I have a concrete solid opinion on, or anything like that, or on like the best ways to use it or things like that. So I'll just bring up things where I see fit. So like watercolor, for example, since it's the main one that I'm using throughout the spread, I'm using the kuretake gansai set. I can't remember like which one this specific series is called, but the box that it comes in is like an earthy green, and it kind of has like the basic colors. I feel like whenever it comes to these pigments, they're not as rich as some of the other pigments that I use, like some of the different watercolors that I use, but at the same time I feel like on terms of drying it's definitely convenient, because it feels like it doesn't take too much to dry. Like, it doesn't feel like heavy, if that makes sense. So it can be kind of convenient for like just coloring solid spots, kind of like what I do with the red background. I believe a lot of that I try to use the kuretake watercolors. And then another set that I used during this time was actually a customized watercolor palette, and I was thinking about making a video on that. In general, watercolor is on my list of mediums that I would like to really deep dive in and learn more on this year, just kind of like expand my my skills in, but also just like doing actual pieces focused on using that medium. However, I do want to continue working on alcohol markers right now, so there's a lot of it's difficult because I want to share you know, I want to like get into my watercolors, because there's two brands that I actually haven't even opened yet, and I want them to be like future videos that I can talk about the different brands and like how I'm enjoying them and using them. But for right now, we're gonna stick with alcohol markers, aside from me doing this spread, of course. But the point is I made my own personal like watercolor palette, and whenever I say that, I don't mean like I made the colors or anything. I mean like I just kind of bought a empty pan, and I just kind of filled it with two brands that I had like individual tubes of. One of them is grumbacher, the Academy one, and then the other one is Reeves watercolors. And then lastly, out of the watercolor sets that I may have used when creating the spread would be the Winsor Newton Cottman, like that basic set. I think it's the one that's in the right side corner. Yeah, so it's that one. And yeah, I kind of just go in between using several different things, like whatever pigment I feel like works for what I want. I'm doing like a ton of different swatch tests on an empty paper that is off to the side. But yeah, just to like really see what pigments I'm looking for and how to create the colors that I want for this spread. And that's probably another reason why I end up going between so many different mediums as well. Or the thing is like different art mediums can cause different looks, if that makes sense. And so I wanted to consider that as well as the colors. So I feel like that might explain why I went through so many different products and supplies. But yeah, for this time around, I'll just give myself a break on explaining the whole what supplies did I use, because it's quite a chaotic time. But I'll do my best to provide insight here and there where I see fit. And for like the process in general too, I wasn't really sure how to go about my commentary on it, because a lot of it really is just trial and error and me figuring things out, because as I say all the time, I don't really work on illustrations, or I haven't in a while, so it's nice to sort of get back into that of like thumbnailing and creating ideas and concepts and just trying to see them through the best way that you had initially envisioned when you came up with the idea to draw something. And yeah, sometimes it's hard because like even with this piece, there's just things where it's like I overall don't mind how it came out, but there's just some things where I'm like, dang it. One of them is actually in relevance to products or like the supplies. I feel like if I had done this with gouache, I would have ate this up. Like the thing is I actually still don't even really know how to use gouache, or like I haven't worked with it even like I want to say at all. I know I've played with it a little bit like from time to time, but basically it's something that I still need to actually introduce to myself. So I was kind of thinking like, let's just keep this one thing at a time. I want to get into watercolors next anyway, so it's fine because I kind of already get the gist of it, but I don't think I will introduce gouache this time around. I really feel like the way that gouache can look, that solidness, the way it can be so opaque and bold, that would have been perfect for this particular concept and like this spread. I just feel like it would have really made things come together. And even if I had mixed the two, you know, like some parts I keep watercolor, but some parts I keep gouache, I think that would be really cool as well. And basically what I decided is if I get to gouache before the sketchbook is done with, then I will probably go back and do the spread with gouache on it, because you can paint over things as many times as you like pretty much with gouache and acrylic. But if not, I'll just leave it as is, and you know, we can just carry on, because it doesn't have to be perfect, you know, it is a sketchbook. So and taking that mentality back into talking about the process of this page, I feel like, yeah, there was a lot of things that I just realized later on and just kind of let go. One of them is, I'm gonna like just ruin everything for you. Well, if you haven't noticed it already, the fact that the painting that she's looking at is like off-centered, towards like, yeah, it's like moved over to the left a little bit, or at least like I didn't extend the right side all the way to the end. Like the gaps need to be equal, and I can't believe I missed that, to be honest. I must have just been like, it's fine, or I just thought of something else, I don't know. But I would like to yeah, fix that some kind of way if I could, and that would probably be with gouache, but alas, I guess I'll just have to let it go. And then creating the part that I'm working on right now is like these, it's kind of like a graphic element border type thing going on there, and I put some text over it at the end. It's kind of cool, and I like, that was what I had envisioned on the thumbnail, so I knew I wanted it there. It's just, it was really interesting to see how I was putting that together. There was some things that I kind of like realized after the fact, like whenever I, because I put the wash over, right, and then I put the red roses on top. But then I'm like, well, I want the blue, like the bluish type of background to be darker. So I go over it again later, and then I'm like, oh, right, this is watercolor. So if I put water over what I already have had down as like pigments, it's going to reactivate, that's the word. It's going to reactivate the watercolor paint that's already on the page and kind of give it like this muddier look that you generally don't want. So spoiler alert, that ends up happening, and I'm just like, it's not too bad, but it's just kind of funny to see myself like make those little like mistakes here and there. But that's, you know, like that's the benefit of trying those things out. You kind of learn through those mistakes. And yeah, because I end up doing the flowers, I end up like coloring the roses twice, and I end up doing the vines that connect them twice, and it's quite an interesting time. And also this is, as you can tell, in real time, and I, you know, even though I've mentioned before that I'm kind of wary about my videos being too long, I feel like this time around it's fine. Like every now and then I do want to include like kind of a more like a longer process or things like that, and hopefully it's for pieces that I feel like are a little bit more interesting to watch in the future. I don't know how interesting this one is because I feel like it's a little bit more abstract, you know. It's like you don't really have this beautiful face that you're looking at necessarily. It's like a scenery, but again, it feels kind of abstract. I mean, you just have really two elements. You have my OC staring at the painting, and then you have the painting. I mean, you also have like the borders that go around it, but again, it does feel kind of like a I don't know if you would like count that as a part of the composition. I guess, I don't know. I'm just kind of like rambling. My brain is having a moment. But oh right, the part that I'm painting right now is actually the frame, because that's like another part of it. It's like there's a picture frame, so it's like, I guess, kind of really doubling down on the whole art idea, or like the whole museum aspect, because it's like there's a framed picture of someone looking at a picture, or looking at a painting rather. So kind of like this Inception type vibe to it, and I feel like conceptually it's very me. Like I would like that kind of thing, but I would also like to explore ways that could have made it more intriguing. I did consider at the beginning like maybe doing a series of museum items kind of here and there, like instead of just like, there was several different ideas that I had. I just wasn't really sure how to go about it, and I was worried that the one that I decided on was a bit too simple, but at the same time I do kind of like it for what it is. It feels different, but in like a good way. And yeah, the drawing someone from behind can always be like a hit or miss for me sometimes, because usually what I want doesn't end up looking how I want. I want it to feel like dynamic and immersive, and you know, in reality it ends up looking kind of stiff and just kind of like, here's like this person from behind. And I think it's because I felt like I drew her too small. It's really interesting to think of like the way that I had envisioned this versus like the way that I executed it. I don't know. I don't know if it's something that I should revisit in the future. I think that would be kind of cool, or like revisiting it digitally, but I also feel like I have those, like, I say that too much. Like I have too many moments where I'm like, I should revisit this digitally, and that's how I end up getting all these like extra little like projects that, while they're like beneficial in a way, it's also like you could be just kind of moving on and working on something else, because again, it's a sketchbook. It does not need to be the most like well thought out thing. Oh, and to mention, you know, again about like the products and stuff, the brush that I'm using specifically for like doing these vines is from Winsor and Newton's brush pack or whatever. Not like a brush pack, I think I got an individual brush, either because it was on sale or I just wanted a really like thin brush to use. The thing is I'm so awkward with using it, like both here and whenever I go to do the lettering at the end, I was so stressed, or like not stressed, but like befuddled, I don't know, just really trying to figure out how to get the brush to do that smooth gliding that I see whenever other people go to use their thinner, like small brushes for things like line art or like details. I really want to be able to get that down at some point. And it's not that I do completely horrible with it, but it didn't go as smoothly as I had wished for it to, and it could just be because, like, you know, nervousness, definitely a thing throughout creating this piece, because it's been a while. And again, traditional art kind of like scares me in a way, like the fact that it's really easy to mess up, and if you mess up then it's like, oh gosh, how am I gonna try to fix this, you know. And then it's the first page, of course, that carries its own weight, as many people probably like think of the first page of their sketchbook as like something really intensive. And I get it, because you open your sketchbook and it's just there staring back at you like this white void of endless possibilities, and it just feels so overwhelming, because it's like, what should I do? This is gonna be the first impression. If anybody ever opens this is the first thing that they're gonna see. And yeah, it can just be very like yeah, intense is the pretty much the most accurate word I have for it. But I'd say to not give it that kind of weight. Like, it really does not have to be that wild. The first page I actually ripped out because I had accidentally thought it was the second page or something, I don't know, and I had like doodled on it like these really weird looking portrait sketches for practice. Like, they just turned out kind of derpy. I only sketched 2 of them and I was like, eh. And I was like, wait, this is the first page. Oh my god. So I was like, I'm gonna just take this out. So I ripped out that page, and now I'm using it as like a swatch test page. So yeah. But no one's gonna know if you like rip out your first sketchbook page because you don't like how it turned out or something like that. It can be whatever you want. It doesn't have to be like this grand thing. It could be studies. It could be like, you know, it could literally just be a bunch of scribbles. It could literally just be a solid page. You could just leave it blank, honestly. Or you could put your name, you know, just all different kinds of things. I feel like everybody goes about it a different kind of way. I just think that I normally don't do like an opening welcome page or anything like that, so I wanted to try it this time around. And again, I feel like the theme definitely helped me, and it's kind of like clever to, like, you know, go for a museum type theme because I got it from a museum. Just little things like that. I think the most important thing is that you make it feel like personable to you, like you make it feel like home, because it's your sketchbook. And if you first start working in it and you are like unsure about how the vibes are, I feel like it can really set that energy of what you want your sketchbook to be like. And funnily enough, I often skip the first page because I just don't really care to do it whenever I first open a sketchbook. Like, I am the kind of person that will work in different pages, like non-chronologically. I am really having a time with English today, let me tell you. It's just not happening. I don't know what it is. This keeps happening whenever I go to do voiceovers. I keep getting like, my brain just kind of like short circuits because there's so many things that I feel like I want to say, and then at the same time I don't know the best way to say them, so I just feel like I sound like an idiot, so thanks for listening. But yes, here is the part where I had wanted to go over the border to give it more of like a deeper blue, and I was like, oh right, this is watercolor, so it's just reactivating the paint that I had already put down. Dang it. And so what I end up doing is, instead of like swiping over it like a wash, you know, I try to like dab it on there lightly, and then I think I try to push it in later after I'm like gently trying to dab it on there. But even then, that kind of just creates like this weird speckled texture because of course. So yeah, there's lots to learn with this medium. I just had one of those like brainless moments where I was like, oh right, why did I think that that was gonna work out? But overall I feel like it does. Like, I really wanted this rich blue. I don't know if it's like I got inspiration from like something I've seen before or what, but I just had this idea of like, you know, border that has like a deep blue background to match the painting and to match her hair. There's a whole primary color scheme going on here. And again, I just feel like for some reason whenever it comes to Zure especially, her color palette is always going to like include some kind of red, or I don't know, I always end up with primary colors, and I think it's because her natural color palette is primary colors. Like she has like this deep midnight turquoise almost blue hair, and she has often like red ribbons, and her eyes are like a glowing moon type yellow, and she's just so beautiful. Like I love her so much. I need to draw her more. I really want to create like reference sheets for my OCs. Like I just finally need to get on it. I don't know. Send me your energy. And oh, also for going back into the product talk, I'm sorry, I'm like all over the place, bear with me. But for the colored pencils, I feel like I am predominantly using my set of Holbein colored pencils because they're just so lovely. I really enjoy how they work, and I also feel like I really like the texture that it gave, like that sort of like, you know, colored pencil texture. I initially would have liked the background to again have been pretty solid, like that look that gouache or even acrylic paint can achieve, but at the same time, after I did this, like went in with the colored pencil, I was like, you know what, this is kind of cool. And I like how it creates that traditional look that you think of, because museums, you know, they often have, art museums at least, have a lot of traditional art. In fact, I feel like it's mostly traditional art. So I thought that was a pretty cool touch on things, and I just wanted to make sure it didn't look too streaky. I don't really do that super well, but I'm just trying to go in with the Holbein colored pencils and make it a little bit better. And I feel like it definitely brought it together more, and it also added like a bit of deepness to that, because that's what I wanted with this specific background and this pigment. I wanted it to be like a deep red. It's almost kind of like a burgundy, really, like a burgundy wine type red. It's very beautiful, and again, I just kind of associate Zure with like those colors, but it's never necessarily like primary colors in like the bright, vibrant sense. It's kind of like this earthier, deep, like there's just this sense of depth to it. I don't know, I really love it. And that sort of mustard yellow, instead of it just being like a bright banana yellow, I feel like that color yellow, I feel like really pops on darker skin. And even though you really can't see her skin, like other than her neck area, I just feel like, yeah, I love her with that. It really pops on her complexion, and even without like being able to see her skin, I feel like with her deep blue hair, it looks really cool as well. Again, the primary color trifecta, you can't really go wrong with that. So I just get an overall sense of richness, and I feel like it really ties back into the museum theme again. You think of like royalty or like really like beauty and stuff like that. I don't know, I could be reaching so hard right now, but anyway. I do also really like the painting itself. It's not really based off of anything. I decided to make it sort of abstract, but still kind of clever, and I feel like it is because I don't know what it is, but I associate Zure with the moon. It might be because of her eyes again. They're very like intensive, beautiful yellow, even though the moon isn't necessarily yellow. Sometimes it looks yellow, but anyways, yeah, I kind of associate her with the moon, and again, that deep blue that's in her hair. I actually just remembered my own OC lore. One of her names was going to actually be, I think, Minuit, which is French for midnight. And yeah, so that's also probably why I think of like deep colors and like the moon whenever it comes to her. But either way, yeah, I feel like the texture of the watercolor, like the way the pigment sort of like fades in and kind of like creeps, and like that whole dripping motion that I got whenever earlier you probably saw where I like was tapping my sketchbook on my desk. I like put it upright and I was like tapping it and that was so that way the watercolors could drip a little bit and sort of create that dripping paint look, but I didn't want it to be like too intensive. One of them ended up dripping too far and I was like, oh. But it's fine, it all worked out. Yeah, I feel like it just creates that idea of an abstract painting where it's like this very eerie type feeling where it's like, I'm not really sure what I'm looking at. It might be creepy, it might be inspiring, it might be just really alluring. Yeah, so I had a fun time with that. And then we're getting into where I have to go over the roses again. That serves as like that little border graphic element. What is that called? Like a texture? I guess it really is just called a graphic element. I'm like losing my mind trying to make sure I know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, I go back over the roses with like paint markers. I start out like, can I just use a Posca marker is what I was trying to figure out, but I didn't like the pigment of the Posca marker because it was just a little bit too light. And that's just so weird and nitpicky of me, but I was like, I'm good. So I ended up using the acrylograph paint marker, but you can see I'm like fighting with it. I'm fighting so hard with it to sort of produce out that paint, because, you know, whenever it comes to paint markers, you have to press down on it to allow the paint to come through, and this one looks like it's on its last leg, which can't be the case because I haven't used these a ton, even though I've had them for like maybe over a year now, but I haven't used them often, so I'm just like, what's going on? I think it's because usually when you have these, it might be good to, and with markers too, they say to like keep them flat. Whenever you have these vertically, especially if it's vertically with like the tip, like the nib part, if it's facing upwards, all the paint is like going towards the back of the marker, and so whenever you open it again, it's probably gonna take a little bit for it to start up. So yeah, I was struggling a lot with that, but it's okay. I made it work. And yeah, this whole, again, like whenever I did this whole like border part, it was just so funny because I was like, all right, I'm gonna do the watercolor first. And so I did the watercolor wash, and I was like, wait, everything that I sketched beneath, I sketched it with a colored pencil, I believe. It got pretty much washed away for the most part. So I couldn't see the original like sketch that I did of like how the pattern was supposed to go. So then, you know, I have like the background of the layer, of that blue layer with the red roses and the green vines. I'm like, okay, but then I was like, wait, I kind of want to add more depth to the blue, right? And so that's whenever I went over it and I was like, oh, and then it did that weird like reactivating thing, and it just kind of got darker and weirder. And then again, I lost my initial guide of where I wanted the vines to go. And so I was like, gosh, are you kidding me? So, you know, I had to do it again. And yeah, that's why I used paint markers, because they have that really nice opaqueness. They kind of remind me of gouache, or at least acrylic gouache. That's what I was referring to this entire time. Oh my gosh. Or should I say, oh my gosh. Oh, you're leaving? Okay, have a nice day. But yeah, no, the acrylic gouache is what I was referring to because it has like that really opaque, solid look to it. And that's what I love. It looks so cool, and it can be really beneficial if you're going for like a certain graphic, illustrative look. And that's kind of what I wanted for these little borders. But either way, it's fine because I'm gonna go over the borders anyways. Like I said, I end up doing lettering over it. So there's gonna be like a whole like white type going across. So it's not like a huge deal, but I wanted it to look at least somewhat cool. And I feel like one thing that helped is what I go in to do now, which is kind of going into it with this holbein to outline the edges and just kind of add a little bit of depth and cohesivity to it, making sure that it's comprehensible, that yes, these are like roses and vines, not some weird long worm with, I don't know, red bumps. I don't know, but I just wanted to make sure that it was coming together a bit more than how messy it looked. I would love to try doing more of these things in the future, of like fun graphic elements, and again, I feel like gouache or acrylic gouache would really help me out with that. One thing I've also really been thinking about is how mediums interact with each other. So I keep getting confused. Is it like mediums or medias? Because there's dry media, and I'm assuming media is talking about that. Okay, I'm gonna just hope and pray that you guys understand what I mean. Because I just, at this point, I don't know, my brain is really leaving me. Basically how the art supplies interact with each other. So in this case where I am going over the roses and vines with that colored pencil, because I went over the roses and vines already with the paint markers, it has a very stiff reaction whenever I try to create line art on top of that paint marker. It's very resistant towards that. So that was a really interesting thing to figure out because, yeah, in the future I want to combine art mediums more and just kind of have fun with it. I think it's really cool just to like master a art medium as is, but it's also really cool to combine them because you can get really fun results, like with watercolor and colored pencil, or maybe marker and Posca, or like paint markers essentially. I don't know, there's just lots of opportunities that I would like to explore in the sketchbook, and really and truly whenever it comes to that, I've been using my throwaway sketchbook. It's basically like a old journal, like notepad type journal that I use for creating art whenever I don't feel like it's going to be like decent. I kind of just want to focus on making stuff without worrying about how it looks, because I feel like sketchbooks can have this weight to them where they need to look nice, even though I tell myself like it really doesn't, at least not all the time. I'm still pretty stubborn whenever it comes to that, where it's like I can't have it look too ugly, you know, because then I'm like, oh well, that's just, but realistically that is a part of being an artist as well. Like the amount of ugly art that we make and we're like, oh my god, the world cannot see this, but like it's here in my sketchbook, what do I do? I don't understand why we're like this. I mean, I do, but it's also just like, you will be fine if you like drew a face completely messed up. It happens. You can keep going. With the amount of art that we will likely draw in our lifetime, I feel like you really need to like be able to let go of like whenever something looks awful, and that's more of me telling myself that than a projection on y'all. But if the shoe fits, let me know if it helped. I don't know. But yeah, so my next steps working in the sketchbook are to just kind of continue it. It's not like I have a really set goal on where I want to go with it, or not necessarily where I want to go with it, but how long I want to spend in it. I would like to finish it a lot faster than I did with my last sketchbook, which I believe took me 3 years, so that's fun and great. I would rather get this, yeah, taken care of quicker and just kind of have fun with it, most importantly, like explore different kinds of styles, explore different kinds of subjects to draw. So far I've been using the sketchbook as like before I fully moved over to it, I've used the sketchbook a lot for art studies, like just studies of people, things I find on Pinterest. I've done a lot of flower studies in this, and yeah, I've just been having a lot of fun with it. I'm really fascinated by the sketchbook size because it's like, it's bigger than the sketchbooks that I initially draw in. Like my last sketchbook was pretty big as well. It was like but it was like a square composition, like a square layout, so it was an 8" by 8". And normally I feel like I'm like a 6 by 8 sketchbook kind of person. Like a lot of my past sketchbooks have been that size. This one I believe is somewhere kind of like a 7 by 9. I don't know the exact dimensions, but it's bigger than what I'm used to, but not so much to where it's uncomfortable. And another thing that's been interesting is moving over from that square ratio to like a rectangular shape again. Is kind of like interesting. Also now I am jumping into the type at the top, or top and bottom really, but yeah, it's been a long time since I've I mean, not like a long time, but it's something that I don't really do often is try to incorporate typography in things. If I do write words and stuff, I keep it kind of like simple and fun, but this was something that it was it felt so intense. You would have thought that I was being held gunpoint while I was trying to do this, because I mean, I was just so like, don't mess up, don't mess up. Oh my gosh, I can't mess up. I will feel so bad if I mess up. And it's like, girl, it's not that serious. Like, it is never that serious. It's just a spread. It is okay. This is not like your legacy. Just have fun with it. So I knew that I wanted like a serif font, because I kind of associate serif fonts with more of like a ornate, classy look, or like at least museum look. I mean, the font for the Met is a serif font, like in the logo that it has. Also, if you don't know what I mean by serif font, I'm talking about the little sharpies, the little hooks at the end of each individual letter. It's kind of like a common thing whenever you're really into typography to say like serif font or sans serif font, which like doesn't have the little hooks on them. It's a little bit more modern. I went into like full on graphic design mode. I'm so sorry. Actually, I can thank that side of me as like a blessing and a curse, because without it, I probably wouldn't have thought about doing this sort of like typography, like incorporating it into the spread. But at the same time, because I have that side of me, it makes me incredibly cringe while looking back at this, because just everything is so imperfect. And that's often why I don't go for typography in like my drawings, unless it's like digital, where I can just plop it in and like text, you know, just drag in some text and type it out. And another thing is this, I realized after struggling with that paintbrush that I have a white sort of brush paint pen. It's kind of like already loaded. It's kind of similar to my water brushes, except think instead of water, it's filled with white ink. So I just need to press a little bit, and then the white ink will come out, or at least like make it run smoother. And so I knew that I had that, and I knew it was an option, but I was like, I don't know if it'll be good enough for that. So I might need to use like the brush, because again, like I've seen so many people like do lettering with paintbrushes, and it looks so smooth and neat. And whenever I was trying that, I was like, it's not working. This looks awful. And I mean, you know, it's a skill type thing. I just have to do it more and get better at it. But I felt so silly whenever I switched over to using this instead, because it just felt so much more streamlined. And I think the main reason why I probably felt that way is because the handle, it just feels like I had more control over it. So yeah, it went so much more smoother, and I was like, see, I should have done this to begin with. What am I doing? But either way, definitely didn't turn out perfect, but that's okay. If anything, I should probably give myself credit that I didn't spell it wrong. Basically what it says is just welcome my love, but in French. I believe Zure is based in France or something like that, so I love talking about my OCs like they're just their own person, and they just kind of tell me their facts, and I'm like, yeah, this is what they said. Like I didn't create them or something. But yeah. As we're getting to the end and wrapping things up, I can't believe I was able to talk this entire time. I always worry whenever I have to do a voiceover past like 30-ish minutes, because I'm like, how am I gonna talk for that long? And I also feel like I'm gonna be annoying. So again, if you've listened and watched this far, thank you. Hopefully you were able to draw something along with me, or just kind of chill vibe. That's cool too. I think whenever I go to the end of the sketchbook, like the final page, it would be really cool to do a reverse and sort of show Zore like looking at us, and sort of maybe like as if we're now the painting. I don't know, I was thinking about that, so we'll see. But for now, I mean, hey, I've broken in my sketchbook 100%. I'm ready to go full throttle. So please stay tuned for me to do some more sketchbook spreads. I still want to get to digital art as well, so I mean, hey, it's just a journey from here. But thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed your time here today, please feel free to leave a like. If you're interested to see more of my content, you can always check out my other videos and subscribe. For reference, if you're new, I am Rhea, or Etheria, and I like making art and art-related content on my channel. And while I post weekly videos, if you would like more timely updates, you can always check out my other social media linked in the description and also at the end of the video. Till next time, once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I wish you a nice rest of your day, week, month, and happy March. Take care.